chọrọ ịbata na ndụ, ị ga-afosepụrụ ụwa Chineke gị n'anya, were mmụọ gị niile, were uche gị niile hụ ya n'anya, were obi gị niile hụ ya n'anya, hụkwa mmadụ ibe gị ka ị siri hụ onwe gị n'anya, maka ihi Chukwu.
My brother is phenomenal.
He is a loving father.
An enigma.
Wonderful.
I'll say that he's an all-rounder.
I'm tempted to say gentle.
He's a leader.
That is completely impossible. To describe my dad in one word, impossible.
He's a gentleman.
He was a man for others.
That would be difficult to sum him up in one word.
Gentleman par excellence.
Theo is an institution. You can't use one word to describe him.
He was excellent for us.
I don't think I can describe him in one word.
We're here to face the reality that life presents. I would have wished that this was an interview about his birthday or something like that. Or it was an interview of him getting some award and maybe he's sitting down somewhere next to me, but it's something about him being somewhere else that I can't easily access him. So it's a feeling I can't explain.
Muoneke is my husband. We've lived for 40 years, about 40 years. I don't know what else you... So living with somebody for 40 years and all of a sudden that person is no longer around. You know how it feels. Initially when Wendy told me you'd be talking with me, I said, what's the point? You know, if you can talk about all these people and my children and family members, his siblings can talk about him. I don't think there's anything else I'll have to say, but I just thought about 20 years down the line, the grandchildren, the children, they'll want to like see great-grandma talk about, you know, their great-grandfather or something like that. That's why I said, okay, let me come in and see what you want to hear from me.
Growing up was wonderful. Felt completely loved and protected. He's literally the best guy I know. And I think the worst has happened. I don't think the worst thing that could happen has happened. And I mean, they say in everything you should give thanks to God, and some form or some version of this is pleasing to God. So he gives, he takes, he has taken, and it is fine.
As a family, we've been through a lot this period. But I guess I see life differently. My dad was a diplomatic leader, and diplomatic and inclusive. So he found a way to lead and manage a whole lot of things without alienating even the slightest or the youngest or the simplest of people. And that thing is very difficult to achieve.
Incidentally, it says on a very sad note, giving out this information, Chief Muoneke and wife is the first family I met when I came into this town some 22 years ago. As a young medical doctor, I was a bachelor, and I saw a man who was ageless in terms of no barrier, in terms of how old you are, and somebody who was willing to encourage somebody grow. So I started pulling closer to him. 2-3 years later, I got wedded in this town, and of course, they were there for me from day one through all the ceremonies. And the kind of relationship we enjoyed was such that even when I had child education for my twins at Afikpo, 2 of them, you hardly can see Chief Theo without seeing the wife. For me as a young man, it was an ideal couple. They were very ideal for me. They were there, elegantly there in all occasions. You know, it's a man that speaks so softly. And then in that period of speaking, you will learn a lot. So I learned a lot following him through to Rotary Club events, following him through to golf course. He made me to join golf course because he was a foundation golfer in Abakaliki, and for me, it was an ideal exercise for somebody who wants to be great. And even at ordinary times, when I was introduced to going to stadium for my sports, he was always there in the stadium. Sometimes I'll be struggling to walk around the stadium 2-3 times. He has done 20 steps around the cycle of around the stadium. So for me, he was just a magical person, very miraculous person to be with, very wonderful person to be with.
I always let people know what my mother went through after she had a girl, number 1, Ada. Number 2, a girl, Rose. Number 3, Felicia, a girl. You guys know how Igbo people behave or what they think when you have all girls. My mother believed in her rosary. She prayed fervently until God gave her a baby boy. He was my mother's baby. He was my baby too. As a young girl, I looked at my brother Theo as my son. My son, the one that made my mother happy. The one that made my mother stay in the Muoneke family stable. Although we say with total submission to the will of God, but is to say that is with heavy heart, it's an understatement. Nobody really will know how I feel, because the way the children feel or the way the siblings feel are completely different from the way I feel, especially when you spent very blissful years with the person and we had very good relationship. He was my best friend. He was a husband. He was a good man. He was a very fine gentleman. And I'm sure that you must have had different descriptions of him from all the people you have interviewed.
Being the last child, I got away with a lot of things. I'm not even a stubborn person to start with. I'm very, very quiet. So I don't think I gave them a lot of stress. But my dad never punished me. And that's something my elder siblings cannot relate with because they got a lot of punishment. But he never punished me. And something that I always remember was during my NYSC, when it was time for me to go to camp. He was taking me to camp every single day and he never let me sleep there. He would pack his bags and say if they don't let me go, they would have to give him a bed in camp. And that was so sweet, you know.
Okay, the thing is, I met him before I met him. Already heard and read about him before I got to meet him in person. I think it was in my final year, Faculty of Law then. Our lecturer had given us this assignment where we had to consult a book that was written by the former governor of the state, the second executive governor, Chief Martin Lechi. The title of the book was 39 Years Road to Ebonyi State. It was a story of his personal struggle, personal account of the struggle for the creation of our dear state. So in the course of reading the book, I came upon, chanced on a number of names. Akanu Ibiam was there, T.C. Muoneke was there. I mentioned this particular two because they were recurring names. They are names that you still encounter in almost all the passages of the book. So personally, I got curious, who is this man? But because that was just an assignment. And as students, you just do what you are told and you don't really do personal research. Until the day I attended the meeting of our sponsoring club, that's Rotary Club of Abakaliki, as Rotaractors, young people going to share fellowship with their bosses, yes. And then a particular gentleman was coming in, and the song went, "Oh, when the sent." Whenever they sing "Oh, when the sent," it means somebody very important and prestigious is coming in, so everybody rises and welcomes him. So he walked in very calmly and with so much gentility. Okay, it's a culture. We've seen people given that level of appreciation, but I did not know that this was T.C. Muoneke. So it was when he sat down, the introduction was going around, and he got to his turn. He stood up and said, "My name is Rotarian T.C. Muoneke. I'm a member of this club," and he sat down, and I was in shock.
It is pretty difficult for me to talk about my brother in the past. The one thing I can say, first and foremost, is that I give God glory. I thank God for the gift of my brother. In fact, if an outsider is close by, anytime I'm interacting with my brother, you hardly know who is the elder one. We not just bonded, it's a relationship that is like no other one. Since February, that this news of his inactivity came to me, I have been, I'll tell you, I have had a great chunk of my life taken away from me. Not because I can't depend on him again as my elder, not because I can't share my Heineken with him again, and not because I won't see him when I come to his house, relax with him and talk at the end of every day's work. But because I just noticed that somehow I no longer have a friend.
So when I was told I was coming up here, I wasn't sure what to say, wasn't sure if I was going to break down. But I decided to apply a trick that always worked in uni for me during exams. I would dress my best if I felt a bit jittery, makeup and all of that, because it'll help my mood. It's not working today. It's been months of a roller coaster of emotions, not knowing how to feel, just being depressed, praying and hoping that I'll still have him come back and call me Boroko, you know. It's painful. Sometimes I just sit down and cry. Sometimes I laugh. But nothing is funny, it's just maybe madness. Um, Daddy was too kind. He was a disciplinarian, but he was kind.
I actually feel so pained about this loss. Um, it's a loss that we feel, I personally feel so sad about, knowing the kind of person that he was. Very lively person, a philanthropist that will always, find one way or the other to help in any situation, in any way that he finds himself. And that's why he belongs to a lot of organizations that tried as much as possible to improve the well-being of people within and outside the state. So this news actually is not something that anybody will be happy about.
I don't even know what I'm going to say. I really don't know, because just saying it feels like it makes it real, and I still want to be in this world where this is not real. I still want to be in this world where this is a story that will change. Unfortunately, it hasn't changed since February. And every time I thought it's gonna change, it's not changing, it's becoming real. I miss my brother. I really do. What people don't realize is that our father died 30-something years ago. And when Papa died, I had 3 new fathers, and he was the first one of them. It's like losing my father the second time.
It's difficult to express my feeling at the moment because I'm still waiting to see him. I went to Lagos to wish him well, to go overseas for his checkup. And we spoke, we chatted. Even when he was at the airport leaving that night, he called me and said, "We are checking in. I will speak to you when we are at the waiting lounge for boarding." Unfortunately, that didn't happen. And then he called me when he arrived, and we spoke. We chatted very well until he went into the hospital. So I'm still waiting. I'm still waiting for his usual calls to me any time of the day, early in the morning, early hours of the morning, as early as 1 a.m., 2 a.m., any time in the night or during the day.
We came down here as youths, and we used to hear the name TC Muoneke, everywhere you go, TC Muoneke. I will begin to wonder, who is this TC Muoneke? And the people will tell you, oh, if you want anything, is it appointment? Is it getting employed in the ministry or whatever? Meet Muoneke, he will assist you. One thing I noticed from Chief Muoneke is that he was a perfect gentleman. He loves people. his creative part he is a pillar, not only to Abakaliki Golf Club, but to entire humanity. Everywhere you go, even in the other sister club, the education club, I think he was equally the BOT chairman until his death.